Hello. First, I wanted to thank the Chair's Council for giving me this opportunity. I often wonder how a successful clinical researcher develops. In fact, as we're trying to travel the road of becoming a researcher, the idea is that we have to come up with our own big idea and we have to make it happen on our own. And after all, independence is the measure of our success. So what I decided, since I'm a researcher, was to research this. And what I did is I studied a population of successful researchers right here at UCSF. And what I did is I looked at available CVs, and I looked on PubMed for publication histories, the NIH eReporter to look at funding stories and websites of foundations. And what I found through this research is that the trajectories of the successful researchers around here look something like this. Gone to a good college, of course, get the MD training, and it's right around the time that they're getting their training as an MD that they come up with this first idea. This first idea is highly successful, and they get a first grant. At that time, they're able to have some publications and data from this great idea, and then the publications lead them to independent grants, R01s, maybe even large program grants like UO1s, and then of course fame and fortune, which of course many of you here know about fame and fortune. And then naturally, I look at my own career, and my thought is, well, is my career looking like this? Is it looking like I might be on this trajectory? And I would say that on paper, it sort of does, gone to some of these steps as well. But when I look back, and I think at every of the most important transition points in my life, the box directly to the left is not really the main reason that the box to the right happened, and that the arrows have not really been linear. And I would say that in the story of my life, the biggest transitions really have happened because there has been somebody who believed in me and was willing to invest in me. I went to a great college, and I got accepted to an outstanding medical school. But the real reason that I went to medical school was because of the son of Mexican immigrants. In college, I was an international student. I moved here from Colombia. And that means I didn't have a green card or was not a US citizen. I was on a student visa. As such, I don't have a home state where I could apply to medical school, and I also didn't qualify for any financial aid. So essentially entering medical school as an international student was something out of my reach. And one day, I get the letter saying, Carmen, congratulations, you have been accepted to medical school. One of the top medical schools in the world. And in the same letter it said, but before you can register, you need to have $150,000 to your name in a bank account, or you can go ahead and deposit it to us and we'll keep it for you for the next 4 years. And needless to say, even if my parents sold everything they ever owned, there's no way that they could come up with that money. So at the time, in my college, had hired a new vice president for student affairs, and he couldn't go to medical school due to some of the circumstances of his life. When he asked me if I was going to medical school, I said, well, I got in, but I can't go. And I showed him the letter, and he looked at me and said, I am not letting a talented Latina not go to medical school because of bureaucracy. And he invited me to his house a couple of days later, and he and his wife sat me down. She made carrot cake, which is my favorite dessert. And they sat me down and said, we are going to borrow the money for you. And essentially, they became the co-signers of my loan, and that's why I went to medical school. So then I went to residency, and I went to an incredible residency program, and I decided that I wanted to be a nephrologist, and I also wanted to be an epidemiologist, and I wanted to understand the nature of race disparities in kidney disease. As many of you know, African Americans and Latinos are actually much higher rates of dialysis than white counterparts. And I was very interested in understanding this idea. But it turns out that building a career as an epidemiologist and nephrologist wasn't something that was easily done, and the programs were not quite set up to train somebody as an epidemiologist in nephrology, and also not having US citizenship or a green card. So in fact, it turns out that there was a rogue nephrologist with his mentee that had just moved to UCSF, and they were building an incredible career in clinical research. And so I decided to come out here and do an elective. And the reason that I was able to get my training was actually a confluence of circumstances, including a couple of people that decided that race disparities in kidney disease was a good idea. and actually the San Francisco VA, which turned out was the only place that I could do my training and get the master's in epidemiology, in clinical research. And that's how I ended up getting my master's, is this confluence of these circumstances. Now, it came time to actually do some research. But before I was actually able to do this research, I actually realized that I first had to learn to write. So I had been assigned to this mentor who painstakingly was teaching me how to write. My first paper that I came and gave him had like 13 pages just in the discussion section. So he would give me these nice edits and essentially go sentence through sentence and teach me why it was not written well and how I need to write it better. And as we got to know each other in draft after draft, I would get some comments like, "You're killing me," "way too short," and "this sentence is just embarrassingly incorrect." And that's how I learned how to write. And then it was time to write my K award. And I was interested in genetics and sociodemographics and race disparities. But my mentor was into kidney, but not quite race and not quite genetics. So I had to find some way to learn about these issues. And so turns out that there was a pulmonologist right here at UCSF that's interested in some of these same questions. And he said, "Just come to my lab." And he actually assigned a postdoc to work with me on this project. And he opened his lab, never asking me for anything, gave me all their resources. We wrote some papers from these projects, and he never even asked me what spot on the paper authorship list he would have. He was never even on my K award. In fact, he told me to go meet somebody more senior to be on my K award so that I would have a better chance of funding. And that's actually how I ended up writing my K award. So in telling you all this, I think, how does a researcher really evolve? And I would say that I am evidence that serendipity is key, that these chance encounters, that these chance relationships in people who may not be official mentors can actually make the biggest difference in the success of our research career. And in fact, I think a researcher does not make him or herself. I think it is a coalescence of many resources and many factors. And this is why many of us put in our faculty surveys that the reason we stay at UCSF is the people. So the question for this department and the challenge that I hope to bring to you today is, what do we do as a department to make sure that serendipity is possible? How do we open the spaces and make sure that these encounters that have changed my career can change someone else's career? So I propose to you that we can, and we can structure some of this serendipity. And I think we have to create this culture, we have to support it, and we have to invest in it. So how do we create it? The first is, I would say, that we first have to admit that independence is a process, and it might actually be a little bit overrated. And that we potentially need to acknowledge some of these in the promotion packets. You know, when you're putting in your promotion packet, you have to write a couple pages talking about how you're so independent and you came up with all these ideas all by yourself. So I pose to you, why not require to have a little paragraph that summarizes how you got there and who were the people who helped you get there? And how nice would it be if those people got a carbon copy of your promotion letter and it was in the letter saying, "We know to thank you for this person's promotion." How about we redefine the gold standard of mentorship? We think of mentors as the people that when they're writing their CV, they write a box and a chart with our name on it that says what they did for us, what kind of mentorship role, and where we are today. And they get credit every time that they're the senior author, or maybe the mentor on a K award, or if you stay in research. What about all those mentorship times of people where you helped them realize that research was not the right career path for them? What about peer mentorship and what we do for each other all the time? Because this happens all the time at UCSF, and there's no way to acknowledge anything like this. And so, is that really the gold standard of mentorship, is to be the senior author or the K Award mentee? How do we think about supporting a culture where this is right? Let's think about our mentorship awards. We essentially have a lifetime mentorship award that some amazing people here have won. And we say, congratulations, and here is your mentorship award, and good luck in retirement, see you later. So I propose to you that we create awards for junior faculty. for mentorship of junior people, that we allow people to build a track record this way. In fact, the NIH has created awards for this purpose. Some of them are called the K-24, which is supposed to be to protect the salary for senior mentors to spend time mentoring junior faculty. The catch with that is that to be eligible, you have to have a track record of mentorship. It's a little hard to build a track record of mentorship when you're an assistant professor and you haven't yet been the mentor in a K award of anybody. I propose that we can recognize the peer mentors and the mentors in the junior faculty. I think that we need to think about how important the people around us are to us, and I think we need to think about supporting the salary for outstanding mentors. I think that needs to be part of what we value as part of their contribution to the department. And then I think we need to invest in this culture. And the way that we think about investing in a culture is to invest in the pipeline of mentors. At this point, the way that it's supposed to work is that you're supposed to become an independent researcher, and then at that time you're ready to mentor. But how do we know that we are becoming good mentors? So I propose to you a pilot program where we create mentorship grants. And the way that would work is that junior faculty would be allowed to mentor some of the potential researchers under the direction of a more senior mentor. And that person that junior faculty member is protected to have their time protected and their salary protected, to have career development options, to have leadership skills, communication skills, to become a good mentor. And I believe that this is possible. So to end, I guess I would say that in looking back at my career, it really has been these unusual mentorship relationships that have propelled me. And I would say that for many of us, the question and the challenge for us as a community and for us as individuals is to think whether we have the humility to accept that perhaps for many of us, the biggest contribution that we'll make to science is the discoveries of people we train. Thank you.